K2Y is all about building resilience within a business so that the business owners can go home and be better family people. It's always been a passion of mine. I think there's a strong need for that good leadership in business, and then for that leadership to transfer into the home so that we raise good, resilient families, including young kids and partners. And, as we move through this year, there's going to be, potentially financial pressures come through into businesses. And so in business, you can be resilient through different levers that you can pull, like knowing your numbers, knowing where you are and looking at strategic action you can take. In your personal finances, you know what costs you have to make and what costs you can cut out, and having an emergency fund. So there's different strategies we use. And in sport, often the sports team will have A, B, C plan. And, the captain has a strategy about when he pulls the lever on each of those plans to play the game correctly and try and win. Health is another really good one. And I think health aligns a lot with what we're going to be talking to tonight and about tonight, which is, mindset encapsulates all of resilience. Everything we talked about just then between business and finance and sport, a lot of it is to do with mindset. And just like health, if you want to be resilient in your health, it takes a while to build that resilience. You can just eat a hamburger once in a while and it's fine. But if you eat a hamburger every night, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble in health. So mindset is all about, it's a long journey, and there isn't any quick fixes to it. But I think the woman you're going to be introduced to tonight has an amazing story, has been through an incredible story, and then found the tenacity to build a business that is actually helping now thousands of young families right around the world. So without further ado, I'd like you to welcome me and help welcome me to Carla Lombardo. And she's going to join me tonight, and we're going to chat about some of her stories. So Carla, welcome to K2I.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a real honour to be here and have this conversation with you and share some nuggets of wisdom with everyone here. So
yeah,
thank you.
100%. Yeah, I think, guys, I met Carla a few months ago in some discussions we were having, and we just ended up chatting for nearly 2.5 hours. It was just absolutely mind-blowing where that conversation went and the power of it. So I really wanted her to share that story. So maybe, Carla, why don't we, before we get into the business side, which I know some people are really keen on hearing, but I think it's really important we understand, where that came from. So why don't you share a bit about your story? Like where were you born? Where'd you grow up? What was sort of family life like for you?
Yeah.
The early days.
So I'm actually born in Canberra, believe it or not. I spent the first year of my life in Canberra, and then we moved to Sydney, and I grew up in the Sutherland Shire around Cronulla. So I've had, it's been a beautiful life, but I was a very shy child. So shy that I would actually flip my hair over my face so no one could actually see me and talk to me. I'd hide under my mum's skirt, and every adult that came into contact with me kept reaffirming, "Oh, you're so shy, you're so shy." And so there I went, reaffirming that message that I was a shy child. So and I had great opportunities handed to me. So my parents were entrepreneurs themselves, and they had a motel and reception lounge where they had weddings and different sorts of events, and I worked in the business. So that entrepreneurial seed was planted from a young age. And I went to a private school. I had all the best opportunities, but I wasn't able to take advantage of them not because I was forced to act a certain way, but because of all these blocks and barriers that, like a jail I'd placed myself in with the words that I was speaking to myself. And it's only now, all the work I'm doing as an adult to undo all that, I can see all those messages, the internal talk, how that, gave me limiting beliefs about myself from a young age, even though I had every opportunity handed to me on a silver platter. But I had a great childhood. I had a great life. I was very fortunate with a loving family.
Oh, that's good. So we moved through, and what age were you when you started to really realise that mindset was occurring in your mind? Like, how old have you been?
Not till my 20s.
Right.
Until my 20s, when I realised what was going on, and I guess you could say it was the start of my spiritual awakening and just wanting to do things differently. Like I'm morally and ethically, the jobs that I was working in, I had this internal battle with myself every day. And I said, Mum, like, this is what's happening. I don't like the work I have to do. It doesn't feel right. And my mum's like, okay, let's unpack this and let's see, time to quit your job and time to move on to the next thing. But it wasn't, I was a bit of a late bloomer, definitely figuring out, all about that stuff, all about myself.
Yeah, right. And so how old are you now?
I'm 37.
Right, I know you shouldn't ask a woman that, but we did have that discussion. But okay, so 37. So take me through the years sort of when it got that realization from sort of your early 20s. What was life like until, a few years ago? What were you doing and how did that sort of manifest and play out for you?
Yeah. I don't mind sharing my age either because it's such an honor to grow old and be around your loved ones. But my life was great. I loved traveling and I traveled the world to escape the boring 9 to 5 that I desperately despised so much. So I did a lot of travel 2 to 3 times a year somewhere around the world. And I worked hard and I traveled harder and I didn't understand how much of an effect that has on the body. We need, a little bit of stress to function, but when you just constantly put that stress on your body with lack of sleep, having a lot of fun and not understanding how to take care of your body, I never realized that adds layers like a cake, like stress builds and builds and builds, and it's very hard to get rid of. And I worked in the fashion PR world, that's where I had my moral and ethical internal conflicts going on with the job I had to do and, what my personal ethics were. And so I left that world and then I went to work with Virgin Australia and I loved that job. It was travel, it was fun, it was great to send people off on a wonderful holiday, and I rose quite fast within that company, but it was shift work, and shift work is very difficult on the body, the unnatural hours you have to do. And I would work double shifts. So, getting up 3 o'clock in the morning, getting home at almost midnight and doing it all again, just so I could go and travel on my 3 days off or my 5 days off. And that really burnt the candles at both ends.
Yeah.
And that's what life looked like before where I am right now. And then I met my partner. 3 months later, I was pregnant, which was quite the surprise. Like it's all worked out, like we love each other.
Yeah.
But there's all these things have played a role in getting to the point.
Right. So we got to from the story that we've been discussing, we got to 2019 New Year's Eve. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Most of us can probably remember, or some of us might be able to remember what we were doing back then, just before COVID lockdown. But it was New Year's Eve, wasn't it? And something occurred. Can you explain where you were there and what was happening?
Yeah, so I was actually in Bali. I was with my family, my partner, my mum, my mum's friend, and my stepdaughter. She was 6, and my son, he had just turned 1. And we were there for a family holiday. I hadn't drunk alcohol in a few years, especially with the pregnancy, and first year of birth, I wasn't interested. And my mum said, it's New Year's Eve, you guys go out, have fun. So we found a restaurant, rooftop bar, fairy lights, live music. It was the perfect setting. I had my first drink in like 2 years. I took a sip and everything changed. My body was on fire. I couldn't see, I couldn't talk, I couldn't move properly. And I thought my drink had been spiked. So my partner drank it to prove there was nothing wrong with it. He was fine. We had one more, so we somehow made it back to the hotel. Terrible night. No one knew what was wrong with me. We flew back to Australia and took myself to the emergency department. And no one believed me when I was saying there's something wrong with my brain. I can't walk properly. I couldn't hold my son. And they were like, oh, you've been in Bali, you're dehydrated, you're a mother, you're tired. I said, no, there's something wrong with my brain. So it actually took 5 trips to the emergency department, 4 different GPs. And it wasn't till that 5th visit that I actually made such a scene that I threw the IV drip and you screamed for a doctor and someone came to see me. I finally got a referral for an MRI. So this is 5 weeks since I'd landed back from Bali. Then I had to wait for the MRI. So 9 weeks had gone past in total. I had an MRI and it was a Saturday, and the I can't remember what they're called, the person that, does the scan.
Yep.
Yeah. And she said, make the doctor's appointment for the end of the week because things take ages to get results. I said, okay. My doctor called me like 7 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning, and she's like, you have to come into my office. So I called my partner. I was like, you need to come home from work. My doctor wants to see me now. And she delivered the news that I had had a stroke. And that's when my world turned upside down and inside out.
So what happened from there? So they admitted you in hospital, from what I understand.
Yeah, so the quickest way to see a neurologist was to get admitted into hospital. So I went to the emergency department. I thought I was just going to be there for a few hours, but I ended up there for 2 weeks, and they moved me to the acute stroke ward. And this is where I really understood that people can deliver a message to you in such a bad way with not the intention to hurt you, but how you choose to respond or react to that can make or break, the journey that you have in life.
And so how did you do that? Like, how did you were laying in the bed thinking you were going home in an hour or so after the neurosurgeon was to come in, and what did he say? And what did you go through? What levers pulled in your mind to sort of what was happening?
Yeah. I was very numb. I was like, I didn't know what was going on. I was trying to comprehend what the word stroke meant. And I was like, my son's at home. He's only 1. Like, it was so frightening. I actually thought I was dying. I thought, this is it. It's game over. And my mum's words came rushing to the forefront of my mind. And when I was a child, she would always say to me, Carla, whenever you feel scared, you have to say to yourself, I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm protected, and you've got to imagine a white light around yourself. So I did that. Mum wasn't there. My mum actually lives in the Snowy Mountains, so she's a few hours away, and that was when the really bad bushfires were on. So she couldn't come to be with me either, but she was protecting me from a distance from the seeds that she had planted from such a young age. And I just kept reminding myself that I was safe and that everything was actually going to be okay. And that's what got me through. I just kept repeating those affirmations over and over and over again. And, my thoughts would spiral out of control. So I had to learn how to figure out how to be in control of those thoughts, because if I didn't take control, it definitely would have led down to the path of suicide.
Yeah, look, it's a difficult stage trying to do that too when you're in hospital, because you've got so much time to think. I think that's one of the problems spoken to in there, is that, it's not like you're at home and you've got distractions of a young child and you can work through things with your partner. You're literally laying in your own stew, laying there thinking about that. So well, kudos to your mum for instilling that. So where did it go from there? You came out of hospital, and what did that journey look like?
Yeah, it was a long, hard one, because I chose not to believe them, like the prognosis that, whatever the timeline of a stroke, after 6 months, you feel a little bit better. And then after 18 months to 2 years, whatever symptoms haven't gone away is what you're stuck with. And I thought, no, I'm not having a bar of that. I choose not to believe you. I don't want to. And I remember also another thing my mum said when she was in school, that there were some things that the teacher was teaching her that she didn't believe in. And she said, I chose not to believe it. And that was another thing that stuck with me. So I was sitting there choosing not to believe this neurologist, this specialist, and everyone, in my stroke ward was like, Carla, this is the doctor, you've got to listen. I was like, no, I don't want to be stuck like this forever. I don't want to listen to them. I want someone to investigate. There's got to be a way to fix this.
Yeah,
so
right.
Off I went. I ended up seeing 10 different neurologists, and I chose not to believe all of them. And I was like, right, I'm on my own to figure this out. And then that's when the pandemic hit, and I was really on my own. So that's where I started researching the brain and neuroscience and how to support the different systems of my body. I actually couldn't watch a TV, look at a phone, look at a screen because of the damage to my eyes. So I was able to read books and listen to podcasts. So that's where it all started, to learn about how to support the different systems of my body, to find the root cause and to fix everything. But also more than that, Louise L. Hay, her book, You Can Heal Your Life. My mum gave that to me a very long time ago. It's been sitting on my bookshelf, and as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and I was ready to read that book and take in what it had to say. And I also really realized on a deeper level that healing was an inside job. It had to start from the inside out.
Yeah, right. And your boy, Boston, he was only one at this stage. So what were your initial thoughts around that? I mean, as a mother, I mean, I'm a father of 5 children, and I could only imagine that if you're not sure whether you're even coming home, that the thoughts would be amazingly difficult to try and deal with. So how did you deal with that, and what was your sort of thought process around that?
It was really difficult because my thoughts, they would spiral and I'd turn into a panic attack, and then I'd have to call my partner and he'd talk me through my breathing exercises while he was at work in construction on the phone and on top of a building site. And then he's like, Carla, go back to the book, go back to the book. So I'd go back to the book, I'd pick out sentences and I'd start writing them down, and I'd repeat them over and over. And I had to start telling myself that I was healthy, that I was healing, and that I was safe. And I just kept journaling. Then I started to write these little post-it notes all over the house, all over the mirror, the fridge, the cupboards, my bedroom cupboards. There was like not a spare speck of white wall because everything was covered in notes, because I had to constantly remind myself that I was going to be okay, and that I was healing, and that I was going to be around for a long time. I was so worried about what the world was looking like with the pandemic. It was really frightening, and I was living in fear, but more so, what would I leave behind for my son? You know, what does legacy actually mean? What happens if I leave this world too soon and his mother is not around? I can't teach him when I'm gone, but more so, how do I protect him if I can't physically and won't always be around to protect him? Yeah, right. And the more affirmations I started to do, my partner started to notice my transformation. And we had a chat one day when he got home from work. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, well, can you see all the notes all over the house? He's like, yeah, but, it's just your thing. So I was happy to, let you do whatever you needed to do. I was like, well, they're affirmations. And I've been saying affirmations. And he said, wow, your body language even has changed so dramatically. So just from the power of that conversation on the couch, I had like this light bulb moment where I thought, wow, the way that I can protect my son and my stepdaughter when I won't always be around is to help them build a solid foundation of their mind to navigate the challenges and triumphs of life with grace and ease. Because when you have that positive outlook on life, it really shortens the recovery time of hardship. And that was a huge moment for me to realize that the mind is so powerful.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting saying you had to put them everywhere all around the house. And I can just imagine your house full of these things, knowing but I think it's more difficult the older you get, because you can say those things but when you're at the face, the cold face, and you don't know whether your health is going to get better or not. Yeah, you wish it would, but there must be that niggle in the back of your head saying, oh, am I gone or not? So I think the writing them down and journaling, is so powerful, and yet having them as a visual that you can see everywhere you turn, it's just talking to yourself. I think that power of being able to program the brain, and we were having this conversation before, Carla, about the brain doesn't know whether what is right and wrong. It doesn't know whether it's a lie or it's a truth. So you have the ability to manipulate the brain to believe whatever you want to believe. And that's, I think, what you were moved through, didn't you, when you were thinking about your child and your son growing up? You have this ability to do this impact that you were doing now on him.
Absolutely. So because I learned so much about the brain and through about neuroplasticity, I learned about the brainwave states, and I trained myself. So I was reprogramming my mind in particular when we reach the theta brainwave state, which is at nighttime, just before we fall asleep and just when we wake up in the morning, but just before we open our eyes. And I had actually programmed myself to say my affirmations in particular at those times of day, all throughout the day, but I knew that lasting change was going to occur when I was in the theta state. And this is also why I knew it was so powerful for children to help them develop, a positive system of thoughts from a young age, is because children are predominantly in the theta brainwave state in those first 70 years, 0 to 7 years, up to 12 years old, even depending on the child. So that's why they are sponges. That's why they absorb everything around them. And I thought, wow, this is so powerful. And, an affirmation, I kept it simple, like 3 words: I am safe, I am healthy. And once I believed it, once I said it enough that I actually believed it, then I upgraded and I made my affirmation a little bit bigger and bolder. And, you can't just start saying some wacky, wild statement because you actually won't believe it. So you have to keep it simple and build upon that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's such a powerful weapon, and I think a lot of people sort of underestimate the power of it. A quick story that we were talking about earlier today, and my business partner and I were in Queensland about 2000, I don't know when it was, 2008, I think. And we had the ability to listen to Ben Roberts-Smith talk on stage, and then had dinner and with him and his colleagues afterwards. And he's obviously in the press now for a lot of different reasons, and the fors and against and the stories around that. But I think what was really powerful was he explained a story where he and 2 other soldiers were on a hillside, and the Taliban were coming up the valley towards them. And there was about 50 Taliban, and there was 3 of them, including himself. And they had a machine gun and 2 pistols, and the Taliban were fully armed with all types of different weapons. And I asked the exact question of him when we were sitting around, or we were just having a few drinks before dinner. And I said, so what happened? Like, tell me the story. Like, what was your mindset around that? You must have been terrified. And he went back to this sort of story we're talking about here, this power of affirmations. And he said, no, since he was 4 years old, he used to stand in front of the mirror with just his undies on, and he used to say, I'm awesome and I will always win. And he kept it very simple. And he did that every day of his life. So when he was in a confrontational position or a difficult position, or when you've been in those positions yourself, your brain isn't thinking about the survival. It already knows it can win and it can survive. So then it was all about, he said he had the clearest mind to be able to think. So even though there was bullets going everywhere, their machine gun jammed, they had 2 pistols left, so that only holds a few rounds, and they had 50 Taliban coming up at them. He still believed he would win. And so his mind allowed him to think clearly on a strategy to do that. And his strategy was to allow a couple of them to come up to him where they could do unarmed combat and take their weaponry off them and use their own weaponry against their team. And so they actually defeated those 50 Taliban. But his brain was able to think of that strategy and was resilient because he'd said these affirmations since birth. So I think that was a really cool story where I sort of thought, wow, it's one of those things that, like we spoke about at the start, you have to takes time to reprogram the brain. And so there are things you can do in business or in life which can get an instant result around resilience. But affirmations are one of those things you need to talk to your brain so that when you're in those difficult situations, you default to that as a core.
Absolutely. I love that story. I think it's so powerful, and it just proves the power of the mind as well. And it is a process. It takes a while to build this healthy habit of the way you speak to yourself and the words that you use. And you're right, the mind doesn't know the difference between what's reality and what's being imagined. So, you have the choice to feed the right information into your mind. And I love the sheer power of that story of him starting from such a young age and how it has protected him in such a terrifying situation to be able to think and respond instead of react.
Yeah, allowed you to think clearly in a really difficult situation. So back to you. So tell me, so you start to see this development work in yourself, your partner had seen it in you as well. And I'm sure that, although Boston couldn't talk yet, he was probably hearing you walk around the house and watching all these notes on the wall. So where did you go from there? Like what started? How did you start it? Where'd you go?
Yeah, so I actually was like, well, right, I need to walk again properly. I need to balance properly. So I started, my son was put him in the pram, and we were living in an apartment. So we had a little track, but it was about 100 meters, 150 meters max. And I started with one loop of the track, and each day I built upon that. And then when yoga studios and gyms and stuff were able to open again, I did yoga and Pilates every day for 3 months straight. And that was another key moment when I realized that I could stand straight. I wasn't falling over. And I thought, wow, I'm the one that has done this. This hasn't been a pharmaceutical. This hasn't been no one has helped me do this. It's me. Like, we have this innate ability to heal. And from what I learned about neuroscience, I was like, wow, I'm the one that's created these new programs in my brain then because of what I've been telling myself. And it was extremely hhard. But from there, I had to research all different sorts of healing modalities because I didn't want to take pharmaceuticals. I was terrified of it because I didn't want to have another stroke. So I actually found my journal of all the things that I had tried. So books, yoga, Pilates, Ayurveda, Qigong, Reiki, organic food, changing everything to have a low tox household, sleep hygiene, sunset, sunrise, learning about the sun, grounding, visualization, chiro, acupuncture, like massage, reflexology, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, infrared saunas, like the list goes on. I tried absolutely everything, and I had to figure, and of course affirmations were my number one, but I also had to figure out what resonated with me, what I liked, what I believed in, what suited my body. And I developed my own healing plan. So I was able to listen to my body, figure out what it needed. And it was a really long, grueling process, especially with a 1-year-old who majority of the day I had to keep him boxed into like, a 1 by 1 meter little section of the house, and I'd be lying down trying to change his nappy because I couldn't stand up straight. So it was so challenging. But when I started to be aware, actually, and take notice and reflect on these little moments of these little wins I was having, I looked back, and it was just a big moment of realizing that, I was triumphing, I was recovering, I was healing, and I was accelerating the healing process from what they said it would actually be.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's a lot of people suffer that in business as well, because there's little wins along the way, but you don't stop and reflect those wins. And so therefore you beat yourself up, or you're mentally talking yourself down because you're having a bad, couple of days or a bad chapter in that period. And yet the little wins and recognizing that's so important for your affirmation of confirmation that it's actually working. I'm actually getting better. So then you took it on you decided you're going to create a business. Yeah. So tell us about how that went.
So yeah, another conversation with my partner, and I felt like an idiot because I never wanted to have my own business. And I said, I've got an idea. I think it's a bit stupid. And he, said, look, come on, I never judge you. And I told him, and I was like, I want to create affirmation cards for kids. And he's like, that is the best idea. Let's do it. So that's how it all started. He was just so supportive of me and always told me I had great ideas. And because he could see the transformation, he could see the results, he said to me, I got you into the air and you kicked away the chair. And I was like, oh, that's really beautiful. He's guided me through this whole process. So it took a lot of research, and it was good for me to focus on something other than focusing on my health and what I don't want. I could focus on what I actually wanted. And I learned a lot about manifesting in this process. So I created Eagle and Owl, which is my business name, and the Conscious Kids affirmation cards. But what I learned about affirmations is I wanted to give it context. I didn't want it to be just an affirmation that didn't really mean anything. So I was able to incorporate my love for travel, my love of the world, animals, and the chakra system. So our wheels of energy in our body, and children can get to learn about themselves from the inside out, because everything is an inside job. Happiness, healing, everything starts from the inside. And that's how I created such a unique product that has already helped thousands of children. And so, you know, from this shy girl, this really shy child that never wanted to own her own business, I had started a business, and the response was mind-blowing because I was so honest and authentic with my community that I was building and what I was doing, and I was sharing every step of the way. And then I actually started to have so many people start to message me, what are you doing? You know, this looks really amazing. I can see, you know, you're getting better and better. Can you tell me, can you help me? And so many people were just bombarding my inbox wanting to be helped, not because they'd had a stroke, but because they wanted to start making positive change in their life because they could see that I was now thriving. So that was another really beautiful moment on my journey to know that I wasn't just helping myself. I was actually helping so many people that most of them I didn't even know from Bar of Soap, from connecting on social media. And
we've often spoken about that ripple effect is so powerful. You know, you wouldn't be able to even put all the people in the MCG of how you've affected. You know, maybe there's a child that's now not contemplating suicide because they've suddenly learned some affirmations about I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm there, you know, and the effects of that are huge. So kudos to you. That's awesome job. So I'm interested in how to get eagle and owl. Okay, question for you. If you were an animal, what would you be? Right, great question. Hey, I'm supposed to ask questions. I think I'd I don't know. I love elephants so much, but I don't know if I want to be an elephant. I think I'd like to be a bird of some description. I think that freedom that a bird seems to have is what I'd be looking for. Yeah, that's why I loved the eagle. And when I realized the eagle was showing up everywhere for me, I started to do some research into animal spirit guides, and the eagle is my power animal, and it's always been my animal for a very long time. So literally about 6 times a day, I will see an eagle, or the word or a sound will pop up somewhere in my day. So the eagle represents freedom and perspective, to rise above and look at things from a different perspective. And then the owl, that's actually my partner. So in the New Zealand Māori culture, in his family, an owl symbolizes one of their ancestors. And if you hear or see an owl, that means they're around to let you know that they're guiding you and protecting you. So I love the, you know, the balance of day and night, the magic and mystery of nightfall with the owl and the eagle soaring through the day. So that's how I came up with the name. And I think it relates really well to your product as well. I mean, you're providing that safety for everyone. Yeah, thank you. And also I think kids, all of us actually, like, nature always has a message for us, and it's really important to connect with animals, because just by looking at an animal and how it actually, you know, eats its food or how it flies, it's got a message to deliver to you. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So your business now is international. You now sell cards around the world. Tell us more about the business itself. Like, are you in school? Like, where's your main markets? What are you doing with the cards? And, you know, how can we help as well? Yeah, thank you. I guess it started out as something for me to focus on, just to take my mind off my problems. And when I saw how popular it was getting, I was like, okay, maybe I can actually have a real crack at this. And that's when I ended up finding a business mentor, because I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. I was just kind of like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks and wasting money. And I thought there's got to be a better way to do it. And, you know, with a lot of research of like free courses, I figured out how to, you know, do my wholesale plan. So I'm in quite a lot of retail stores, and I'm always, you know, open to opportunities to growing that. I was approached by a school in one of the local schools during one of the lockdowns, and I actually created a mindfulness and affirmation program that we did for a few months. So I would have about 400 families on a Zoom call once a week, and I was the affirmation coach. Like, I was planting the seeds of mindfulness and helping children through. They were really struggling with the lockdowns, not seeing their friends, not having their routine, difficulties at home. So that was a really powerful moment to be in a school and working with kids in that capacity.
I've just started doing some in-person workshops, collaborating with another beautiful business to bring more mindfulness into their lives and into their routines, and building my, network and partnerships and collaborating with people. It's collaboration and cooperation over competition. So that's where I'm at. I do sell all over the world and looking at setting up an international distribution network at the moment, which is really exciting. I've got lots of projects that I'm working on, but I think the biggest thing to help actually get the momentum and keep me going was getting the guidance from someone that's been in business, that knows like the formula for creating success in business.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You're either going to learn the hard way and as you said, throw shit on wall and spend a lot of money doing it, or you can take a whole lot of shortcuts with knowledge. I think that's very. And so for those that have got children themselves or grandchildren, what would be one of your messages or takeaways, other than like, how would they start this process? Tell us how the actual cards work. Are they literally a picture of an animal and you relate the animal to that
affirmation
and to the affirmation, or how do the cards work?
Yeah, so these cards I've actually based on the 7 main chakras in our body. So that's the root chakra up to the crown chakra, and there's 3 affirmations per chakra. So the root is like the foundation for safety and survival in life. And when you learn to balance that, you actually have you're more stable in your thoughts, your finances, so many things. It's like, a building foundation. If you have a really rocky foundation, the whole building will crumble, and it goes the same for your body and your mind. So there's an animal that represents each affirmation, and you work through those cards. You can pick a card like you do with tarot cards. You can, say them all. I like to get children to start with a morning routine, picking one in the morning as soon as they wake up, or putting it on their bedside table. If your child cannot talk, or if they're an infant, what I did with my son, I would recite the affirmation to him in the present tense. So you want to say, I am safe, as if the event has already occurred. I can't say to my son, you are going to be safe, because going to be, that's somewhere in the future. When's that ever going to happen? So you have to affirm it as if it's already happened. So, and then as my son got older and he was starting to speak, he could recite the affirmation back to me. It was a bit dodgy when he was 2, 3, and now that he's 4, he uses affirmations in the right context. And
I've seen him. Anyone that's wanting to cut you off there, anyone that's wanting to see a classic case of this, look at Carla's socials. Her boy is riding his push bike down a dirt road towards a bridge, and you can hear him yelling out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's yelling out, I am strong, I am brave, I can do this.
I can do this. Yeah.
And he says it about 4 times as he's coming down this dirt hill towards this bridge. And it's amazing.
That was a mom moment where I was like, yes, it works every time he uses the affirmations in the right context. And he's so proud of himself. So it's awesome. And you just have to start with getting them to say one affirmation. Once you get it, move on to the next one. Like, there's so much information on how you can use the cards, but the best thing is to put it in a place where you can see it, like bedside table, fridge, mirror when they're brushing their teeth, and get them to look in the mirror and recite the affirmation.
Yeah. And the younger you can start, the easier it is, isn't it?
Absolutely. Creating healthy habit from a young age, because we all know how hard it is to break bad habits as an adult. It takes a lot of time and effort and work and energy. So it's so simple to get children to create a healthy habit, or they've got the means.
Yeah. Carla, it's been amazing chatting with you. I think your story is very humbling, and it's just beautiful too. And I think it's a credit to you. I can't imagine, as you said, having to box your 1-year-old son into a metre square area so that you can care for him today, so that you can lay on your side. Amazing story, amazing strength. And to be able to pull through that effectively on your own. I know you had a partner, but he was working, but be able to pull through that with that mindset and that clarity, I think, as hard as it is, I think you're going to change the world. You're going to change a lot of kids' lives for that pain that you went through. So well done for pushing through. It's a pleasure chatting with you tonight and to learn that story. And I hope the rest of the audience have enjoyed it too. Listen, to get around Carla, we've got some stuff here. So the opportunities that Carla's really going to look for, and it's really small, I can't really even see it, is partnerships and collaborations, and looking for schools, entries into schools or areas where she can talk to schools, and obviously wholesale outlets as well. So if any of our members want to reach out and do some work with Carla, I think it'd be fantastic. I'm definitely going to buy some cards. We've got a little Ellie who's 18, 19 months, and I'm sure she will soak it up very quickly. And look, I think, Nada, if you could just put in the chat box the contact details, that would be terrific. But look, I think it's been absolutely fantastic having you on, Carla. I look forward to watching your journey unfold as you continue on and grow. And, you know, I'm sure you won't, but I don't want you to ever lose sight of the impact you're going to have on children. I spent a lot of years in the police force, and I saw a lot of domestic violence, and when I was 18, I was a bit naive to the impact it was having. You know, it was certainly a bit of an arrogance brick wall you put up to protect yourself. But when you go to 10 domestics a night for 6 years, you see, and then you reflect back on it when you're older, you see the damage that the kids are just witnessing. And so to have some tools like this that are simple for parents to be able to use, simple for the schools to use, simple for the kids to believe in, I think you can honestly make that really big difference. So well done, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you everyone for coming to listen to our conversation. It really does mean a lot, because I know together we really can make a difference in this world. And sometimes it's the most simplest things that have the biggest impact on your life. And it's the simplest things that you don't want to do because you're like, oh, this is so simple. It can't be true. It's probably not going to work. So yeah, when we really come together and, you know, when we take care of our own health, we actually contribute to the overall global health of the planet. So it's really important to do that. So yes, thank you for having me to share my message. I really appreciate it. And if anyone wants to reach out and connect, I would love to talk to you and become friends.
Thanks. Great, Carl. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.